Yes.
Welcome, Maarten.
Thank you, Jim.
How are you doing?
Actually, doing great. Feeling good in life as well, professionally as in my personal life. What I just said before I went live is I have to put in some more sports only in my agenda. It's all good and fun, but my body needs more sports and physical activity.
Yeah,
But
and you were up early today, so
Yes, 4 o'clock. My God, my body was fully awake at 4 o'clock. Luckily, I could have a small power nap in between. That's what I love, because I know from experience, just lying down there, and yeah, I know it's very early, but I cannot sleep. My body is awake, so I better wake up and I go working, and then do a power nap afterwards, and then I feel perfect actually. So.
yeah, yeah. So for the people watching, today Maarten Van Damme is our guest, our weekly coffee break guest, and today the topic is natural collaboration. So, Maarten, maybe explain to the people what are you doing in daily life?
In daily life, yes. Well, first of all, maybe a bit interesting story how we met. Because I started 8 years ago with my own company. It's called Enthusiasm. Why enthusiasm? Because yeah, I was highly and I'm still highly attracted to happiness at work, and I'm yeah, quite an enthusiastic person by nature. And I thought, well, it's also something you can really use in a job in your company. And then yeah, I don't know, like how long do we know each other? 4, 5, 6 years maybe. Jim contacted me like, hey Martin, shall we sit down? I want to speak about Harada with you, and also about organizing a happiness at work congress. And the two things really happened. I didn't organize the congress with you, but I was there for sure, all the congresses. And so I have my company Enthusiasm. Now I made it in two companies, Enthusiasm and Multi-Organized. The one company, Enthusiasm, is really focused on personal development for leaders, entrepreneurs, and sportive people. And then the other company, which I founded then last year in October something, is Multi-Organized. It's really about organizational development. And what I do is what I did mainly was training in human skills. They call it soft skills, but I don't like the name. I like it human skills. Um, but since I started in 2015, I also followed the training at Antwerp Management School about also the structure the correlation with the culture. And then 4 years ago, I got to know Jan de Vries, 3 years and a half, 4 years ago. And he was also doing a lot of interesting things, because I was always about deepening and deepening into it, like finding the holy grail. And like for you, Jim, I got to know Harada through you, and I'm really, well, I'm very glad I got to know it. It's kind of a holy grail in personal development. And then all the studies I did, and especially deepening now with Jan de Vries, is for me something very mind opening. And it's about natural collaboration, about dynamic collaboration. So it's a very long answer. What I do is I train in big and small companies, from multinationals to really small and medium companies. I do coachings. Now it's a little bit less coachings, and advisory, and it's all about collaboration, how to better collaborate together. And what I just restated my name is, or like the tagline of the companies is holistic organizational development. It's about integration, like in nature, about systems. Yeah, a bit of thinking for you, correlate with the seven generations. Yeah, so holistic organizational development with positive impact. For me, that's a very important step. because our business models, as you know, the best, Jim, are really changing to circular and even regenerative business models, and that's what really interests me.
Yeah. And where is that passion for people and for teams coming from?
Well, originally I'm a criminologist, and I was always very interested in human behavior, how to change human behavior. And of course also the dark side of human being. As a criminologist, I was assistant prison ward when I was 20 years old. So a very interesting world. I worked 10 years in justice department, but I was always also very interested in not only the human behavior as such, but also it's always human behavior in a certain context, in certain systems, and it influences each other. And that's what always interested me. But then I decided after 10 years in justice department and also traveling around the world, I traveled with my backpack in quite some countries. I decided like, yeah, only justice department won't do the trick anymore because it's always multi problems, and it's government. Nothing against government because I work now. I have different assignments in government, but I wanted to dive deeper in human behavior in systems and in organizations and companies. For me, it's hugely interesting. And also, for example, when I work in a police department, in a museum, or in a high-tech environment, everybody thinks they're so unique. And like, oh, Maarten, yeah, now that was it's very we are very special, right? Or these problems you encountered, it's very unique. Say like, nah, not so actually, because there is a lot of correlation and things that come back because we're human beings. So for me, it's people on individual base, but I definitely love it even more like in teams and in bigger organizational tracks, how to change it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people will ask now, what is that exactly? A holistic organizational development.
Exactly.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly. Holistic. It's such a big word, an expensive word. No, it's for some people. You can speak about integration. So when you work in a company, you can work on a team. But what you see, a team is part from a department. Then you have different departments. As a whole, it's an organization. That organization is in a certain context, a political context, environmental context, and so on. So you always have to take that into account. So you can work only on, for example, on human skills, what I of course sometimes do, and it has some effect. But if you want to have big effects, you also have to look like, okay, what is the correlation between the individual, the team, the organization, and how is that organization also, in which context, what is changing, in which transformation is happening. So really looking at very many different aspects. So it's nothing holistic. Like holistic is not something fluffy up in the air. It's really the opposite. Actually, it's really looking at all the interrelations, correlations, and what leverages can you take, and to take everything into account. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are watching, they are in a team. There's some friction in the team. How how
Yeah.
do, how do you start, like, from making a group of individuals to a team? Do you have there a certain approach?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Different approaches depending on the budget. And tomorrow, with my colleague Professor Jan de Vries, we will give training about how to work in different teams, different departments. Actually, so you can really dive deeper into the mindset of people. What's their perspective on the world? What is their role? What are their responsibilities? How are they interrelated with each other? what is their meeting structure. So there's different things you can look at. I always also like Lencioni, the model of Lencioni to work with. What's the level of psychological safety? Can they have productive conflicts? What's the level of commitment, responsibility? How do they follow up on results? Because what I see these days, and especially in hybrid working times, as you know, Jim, there is a lot of mailing and not seeing each other anymore. And that's not a bad thing as such, but you really have to know what to expect, which results, how we're going to follow up. Are we not too much in meetings? So it's for me, I always start with what's the as is situation, whether it's in dialogue, in team dialogue, whether I can do it on an individual base, but really getting a clear picture where do they come from, where they are now, and where they want to go, and really making steps. Okay, what do you need? And then you can go deeper. You can go deeper, for example, with personality tests. I've got some good systems for that. But then you can even go deeper. We call it a value mirror to really know where everybody is at, how they look at the world, and what's the difference in the teams. So then to make sure that you have, how can you say, how can you really develop people on a personally base, but also professionally. Matters of interpreting their role, their added value in their role. So there's actually different steps how to do it. But what I noticed from different assignments of the last couple of years is just by speaking with people, going into dialogue in a team way, people don't take the time to sit together and to speak about the way they work. It's always operational meetings, getting things done. It goes faster and faster and faster, and there's a lot of mailing and meetings and so on. But really speaking, like, hey, Jim, how are we going to do this? Okay, are we doing it? It's actually the co-reflective working. It's really taking the time and how are we interrelated? And that's why I also chose the title today, Natural Collaboration. You have to look at nature. I know you like nature as well, Jim. 7 generations. It's all about having a positive impact for future generations. But how are roles linked into each other? But also from different teams, different departments, because you don't want to have too much layers for nothing. And also in those different layers, what's their focus area? So depending on the budget, depending on the timing you have together with the team, I can go deeper and deeper. But I noticed even with small interventions, you can have quite a big impact. And what's also very important, Jim, is the kind of leadership. What is the maturity level? What is the capability? What is the not the IQ? Most of the time, people are experts and they grow and they grow into a team leader or manager role, so they're smart enough. But it's not about the smartness; it's more about the wide span. What can they see in the world, and how do they foster really in the team a better collaboration, natural collaboration? How can the leader foster more ownership? Self-steering. I don't use the self-steering anymore. I speak about ownership. It's really about how can people grow into their role. How can you really make better agreements about working together? So again, a long answer. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah, now I will shoot some questions. So how important is it for people to know each other and to communicate in the correct way? So first question: how important is it to know? Okay, that is that kind of person. That is that kind of person. And then is there what is the ideal or a good way of communicating?
Yeah, I think it's quite important to get to know each other and more than personality, it's really important to get to know like how is somebody perceiving his role. And that's very important because I often give the example in trainings. You give a function description, and mainly in organizations or companies they work with function descriptions. And if you give a function description to 10 different persons, they will interpret it in a different way. So it's very important. So to really know like where you're at, what you see as your responsibility, what's your focus area, especially I think in hybrid times. And I read an article just in the time in San Francisco, it's now getting a problem because nobody's going back to the office, for example. So to really get to know each other, and especially how are we gonna work? When are we gonna see each other? A colleague of mine, he's a HR director in a big tech company, and they don't have offices, so they don't really see each other. But even then, to get to really know each other, I think it's hugely important. But especially in the responsibilities, the added value, the connectedness to each other, to really have. You're fully trained and a trainer in agile and lean, so to really have this good meeting structure, a good follow-up, so you can re-steer in the right direction. So I think it's very important, and also to know, for example, I'm a huge fan, and it's not because I'm a huge fan, but it's also science, to have good feedback mechanisms, to have good follow-ups. I'm always surprised. Now I train for 8 years. I give trainings about feedback and so on. I used to work in 2016 at Intuo. It was a tech platform about feedback. But I'm always amazed in companies that there is such a lack in feedback and good performance management systems. So even the leader doesn't really know what the other is doing. So, and that's just important because you're in a team. Imagine, Jim, I know you're a soccer fan. We're just on the field. Anderlecht is on the field, and now I'm walking there. No, I'm running there. You have to play together to get something done, and you want to develop. You help develop each other as well on a personal level as well as a professional level. For example, you see it sometimes people, they get to know the job. For me, I always like to develop myself. Now I'm applying for an MBA. I'm very curious to have the conversations, but I think it's hugely important to keep being in an evolutionary path, and that's for everyone in a team.
Yeah. And what about the gap between the leader or the employer and the employee? In my opinion, that is like determining at least 70% of the engagement. What's your opinion there?
It's definitely it's science. Those numbers you're saying, it's really science that it's really high. So what I say about this is it's your development dynamics. So the people, how are they developed, how they look at the world in correlation to the organizational structure. What's the team setup? What's the broader organizational setup and the perspective of people, or the mindset of people? So these three domains, they're correlated, and that's if for example you're quite developed and you're taking your role up high, but if the leader, and that's what I see sometimes in different projects, the leader isn't that developed, and he takes, instead of the team up, he takes the team down, or he doesn't see the signs that somebody's getting bored. And that's why I say, like, you have to have feedback mechanism, different meeting structures to really get to know what's happening in the team. And if you have a leader, before COVID, I was in a big project, and in some departments, the cultural change that there was a change to new ways of working. It went really fast. It was really easy because the top leader, he said like, we're gonna do it this way, and he gave a lot of trust, a lot of freedom to the team leaders. But in other departments, there was a lack of trust and there was mistrust, and they were like, there will be abuse and misuse of it, and that was a big change. But then COVID came, and they were forced to do it, of course. And then they said after a couple of months, "Hey, Maarten, actually it works. They even work harder." And then they had to see that people were not going burnout because they were working too hard.
Yeah.
So it's all in the mindset. What are people able to decide for themselves? I'm also a big fan of self-determination theory, and probably you're quite familiar with it. So what's your level of autonomy and your ownership? Do you really belong to a team, to a company, and do you have the competencies? And I believe it's really important to have the human skills, your personal development, but also what's in your role, your professional development, and that needs to keep on going. And if you need to keep on talking about it with in the team, with your leader, and the leader also with another leader, and not too much layers. Of course, try not to make too much layers in the organization. Try to wave it in a natural way, natural collaboration.
Yeah. These layers and reducing or having like a minimum amount of layers, is that important also for decision making?
Yeah, definitely. Really putting as much as possible, and of course, as much as possible, depending on the task, depending on the focus of the team. What do they have to do? Is it really the quality and service they have to do? It's the direct clients contact, or making really the products, or creating the services. The team leader, and together with the team leader, there should also be a focus then on continuous improvement. But then the manager layer above should be focused on end-to-end value streams. Like really what's the whole process. And what you typically see then, Jim, is that managers are really going into the operational stuff and they're focused on details. Instead, they should have a systemic view, and to fix these systemic views. And then you have actually normally a top layer, and they should be involved in new business models, and also in ecosystemic collaborations, because in circular and regenerative models, you need it. You can't do everything by yourself, as well as you looking into the world, Jim, for collaborations, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, with your 5 pillars. So
Yeah, and
then,
what I see is as really essential is to have the right people, the right mindset. Now, what is your vision on the mix of generations that we now have in our team? Gen Z is coming into the team.
yep.
Does that make the team more excited? What's the evolution? What do you see with the mix of generations?
Yeah, what I see myself, Corey, you have literature about it, but what I see myself, for me, it's not about age. For me, it's more about mindset. It's more about I encounter young people from 23, 25, and Jim, they're straight in the 5D, and they have a really mindset, mind-opening mindsets that you're just astonished. You have people of 55 and now doing a big project with Cute Solutions in a tech company. The people of 55 or almost 60, and they still have this young, thriving mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, or intrapreneurial mindset, and then we're just like, wow, great. But then on the other hand, you have people of 50, 55. Oh, I'm looking forward to my pension, and they do a bit of quiet quitting.
Yeah.
And the same for young people. They don't want to be involved that much. So it's more about what's their perspective take, what's their mindset, what do they want to decide at. Are they just coming to their job in an instrumental way? Or do they really want to belong? They want to contribute. They feel they have a meaningful feeling in their world, in their work. And for me, and before, as I said, I was really into happiness. Of course, I still believe happiness is a good thing, but I think it's even more about meaningfulness. It says a lot, and more than even purpose, I think. What gives you meaning? For me, for example, as I said, I studied criminology, but what still gives me enormously good feeling, and the 25 years I worked in the catering industry, restaurants, bars, well, mainly restaurants, but also events and stuff, because I just love the hospitality, because I have this buzzing vibe and new people, and I loved it, like. But people then ask me like, but you did these studies, and I was like, yeah, who cares, like, I just love the job, a job that nobody wants to do anymore these days, but I just loved it, it gave me a meaningful feeling, and that's the most important thing. What kind of feeling does it give you? Administration or making reports doesn't give me that meaningful feeling.
Yeah, but there are people who like to do that. So
Exactly. That's why I use support. Very like,
yeah, yeah, and I think the good thing is with Gen Z that they are kind of shaking up the old school thinking.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they yeah, well, it's just good, like, at least now we're thinking like in many different domains, about our identity, sexual identity, about the way we work, about the way we use cars or not. Like, now, what is it? The younger generation, only 40% has a car or something. It's good, like the way we house, and everything is changing anyhow. So I think it's a good thing. And yeah, thinking and reflecting, and keep on reflecting about the way we work, about the business models we use. And that's my passion, like, how to work in a different way, that it feels good for the person, that he evolves, that it's good for the team, and that the company as well evolves, like that. Yeah, I say in Dutch, not geitenwolle sokken, not no fluffy things, but good for the company, good business results, and good for the people, and good for the environment. That's my aim. I think same as 7 generations at Jim.
Yeah. Now, how do you keep it fun and simple? I think that's really
Yeah,
important. Um,
yeah,
how
yeah,
do you do that in a team? Because structure, there's not a lot of people who like structure, and theory for sure
yeah,
not. So how
yeah,
do you keep everything simple and fun and
yeah.
attractive also for these younger people?
Yeah. Good question. I noticed when I went too deep into theory,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
was very fond of it, and I was people like, and I was losing them. So I was thinking like, okay, what kind of exercise can I use? Thursday I work in a museum with a leadership team. It's now day 5, and there as well. Like, it's not about the intellectual level. They're very intellectual people, and very kind people, but you have to trigger them with exercises, make them go in dialogue with 2 or 3, come back. That's my way of, I really like, what do you recognize, what can you share, and I facilitate. So I'm more a facilitator than a trainer. I don't like to be standing there all day giving theory. Nobody cares about all those theory. You don't remember it anyhow. It's more about facilitating, or holding the space, as you say. But no, it's more about facilitating a dialogue, and then make sure that dialogue goes on. So it's not a one shot. It's like, oh yeah, we had a training or workshop. Oh, now it's fireworks. Oh, we have a barbecue, good feeling. And the next day or the next week, we just keep on moving on. And that's why I work with Youth Solutions for 6 years. It's about habit change. Which habits we're gonna change, which small things we're gonna change to have a big change. So it's mixing up for me. It's mixing up between those human skills and then talking about the natural collaboration, about your organizational setup, mindset, team dynamics, but finding and refining to get together with my colleague Jan de Vries and our colleagues of our network. We're finding new ways of communicating it so people can really correlate with it, because we're going over time. So otherwise, I noticed myself exactly what you're saying, Jim. Otherwise you lose people and people are not interested in it. So
Yeah.
sometimes the easy visuals, the easy words with the same impact is the best. Like my colleague Bram Dolage, a fantastic, inspiring human being, he said it: simplify to amplify.
Yeah, sure. That's
Yeah.
for me also another trend is to make everything experiential. We did during Happiness at Work last year. We
Yeah.
did like with the smells and the and the music. So that is something that I see to connect with the younger generation. When you use these aromas, these music parts, that you really communicate very quickly with them, and that they are fully immersed in everything that
Yeah.
they experience and what is said. So that is something a big a manager of a big company in Geneva. I had a training in Geneva some weeks ago. She asked us if she could get the aromas that we used in the conference, and she will start the her meetings with first spraying the aromas to bring everybody already like in the status that or in the mental state that she.
Yeah. And it all has to do, actually, Jim, what you're referring to. What I learned is to bring yourself in out of this purely logical state,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're so trained to use one part of the brain. Said you know it better than me, but it's using your total brain capacity, and you're using intuition, and you're feeling your emotions, and then you're better capable of taking better decisions, and you're better capable of going this co-reflective working. Yeah.
yeah. Do you have extra tips for people who want to start improve their team apart from contacting you?
Yeah. Thank you. And you, Jim, and you. Yes. Go and have a dialogue. I think that's for me. My main tip is take time to speak about work, not just about operational facts. We have the weekly or bi-weekly team meetings, and it's all operational. But do you know from your colleague what your colleague is doing? Do you know from your leader what he or she is doing? And the other way around. Speak, put that really in your agenda. Put it like also, or every 6 months at least, a strategic meeting. What are you doing? Just work on this team dynamics. Of course, with an external facilitator, you can do it, but you can do so many things by yourself, just by asking new questions, and to get things way more clear. And especially another tip is have these one-on-ones. Make time. You think you're no, I know everybody's busy, but plan it in your agenda, and really have these one-on-ones. And it's so valuable. People feel everybody wants to be seen, as well as the leader, as the employee. Everybody wants attention, respect, wants to be seen. And by having these dialogues, how are you doing? What are you doing? How can I help you? Just simple questions, and you have like a whole conversation, and that way you can really have a follow-up. So these are my tips for teaming. And for a broader organization is also like, okay, what are the different layers are our area of focus? What do we focus? What are we doing the most? If a top manager is too involved in operational stuff, it can happen, but that's not the aim of a top manager. It's you have the people who are doing the job and quality and service, You have a team leader, then a manager for different departments, and then a top layer. But yeah, so have a critical look at your organization, have a critical look at your team, and go into dialogue and work. Same thing as entrepreneurs ourselves, Jim. You can work in your organization, but we have to work at on our organization as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more things to share?
Yeah, and never well, like never stop learning. And also on a personal level, because well, I always have been from a young age very interested in existential philosophy, personal development, and then sometimes I go to a therapist, then to a hypnotherapist, then to a coach. Depending on the stage, depending on how I evolved or did to ayahuasca, you're never there. We are always evolving, and just enjoy the show, and know that your organizational development and personal development are aligned, they're correlated. So if you're stuck always in the same thing in your team or organization, take a look at your own personal belief system and your personal traumas. So that's why I have the two companies, because they're just correlated, they're interrelated with each other. So never stop learning, as the quote of enthusiasm: live your best self and enjoy the pathway. Like I
Yeah.
love it myself. Yeah.
And for you, that includes bike tours and drinking coffees.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
okay, Martin, thank you very much for being
yeah.
our, I think, 54th coffee break guest. We speak soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, and to the watcher, thank you very much for watching and for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.